Just about a year ago, we had the chance to talk to Tommy Tallarico here on the channel. When I say we, it is myself and our good friend Life with Matthew Bennett here joining us yet again. Matt, how you doing? Well, so we had both been talking to each other because it's been about a year since we had Tommy on the channel here to have a 4-hour discussion about the Amico. And a lot has changed, and most of it not for the positive over the course of the last year. So before we dive into this video here, first and foremost, just want to throw this out there that I'm still, to this day, I'm extremely appreciative of Tommy spending 4 hours with us, talking to us over the course of that interview. And since then, I've talked to Tommy a few times since via email or instant messenger or Twitters, and he's always been polite, gracious, kind with his time. So it's one of those that while we may not, or I at least, I'm not going to speak for Matthew here, may not like where things are at right now with the Amico, it is one of those that Tommy is charming as hell. His passion is infectious. I have never had a bad experience talking with Tommy one-on-one or in a group or anything along those lines, but there's some stuff that we kind of need to talk about. And part of it, and why I want to have Matthew on again, is the fact that we were the ones that interviewed him a year ago, where I came into wanting to learn more about the Amico. And we actually had, and I still have it up, and I reshared. I think, Matthew, you were kind of surprised when I shared this with you again, the outline that we kind of set up for last year when we talked to Tommy. But for me, what I was interested in was, first of all, I'm a huge Earthworm Jim fan, but I never owned an Intellivision back in the day. I'm a tech nerd. I like everything's techie. I hadn't pre-ordered Amico. I still haven't pre-ordered an Amico to this date. It's one of those where I did a lot of these interviews when I worked for my previous employer, talking about new product releases where I would interview the product developer. And I asked a lot of questions that I want to know answers to, but also questions I thought you, the audience, would want to have answers to. What was kind of, Matthew, going into this, what were you looking to get out of our conversation with Tommy?
So I had not heard about the Amico until you contacted me like a couple days or a week ahead of the actual interview. And I had a chance to look at it, and I was interested to see where he wanted to go with it. Like when I see a system out there, I want to know, is this a system I'm going to like, or is this going to be, you get that little joystick and it turns out it has Pong on it and it has, the 3 RCA cables and that's about it. So I was curious what his actual target was with all this and if it would be a system I would enjoy. And I was actually impressed enough with it that I did pre-order until
and I didn't
2
know
days
that.
ago, and I canceled my pre-order, unfortunately.
Okay. I wasn't aware that you actually pre-ordered, and
I did. Yeah.
Part of this, if you haven't gone through, I've actually got our interview playing behind us here. A lot has changed. I'm in a new house, new studio and everything. Matthew obviously deposited some money and refunded his money on an Amico.
Yeah.
Where I was coming at it from was, again, a fan of all things tech and just wanted to know more about hardware. I didn't think the Amico was going to be for me, but, and you were much more excited about it, I think, when we talked to Tommy, but I think it's also because we were at two different areas in our lives where, your kids are older and you could do more of that couch co-op, which is,
Exactly.
Tommy nailed that repeatedly, where for me, I'm the only one that games in my house right now. Now, Ellie Joe, I've gotten her to, think she's playing with me with a dead controller and whatnot, but what were some of the things that you were looking for before, like I say, I didn't realize you had canceled your pre-order.
Yeah, and the thing that surprised me, by the way, that you had these notes still, is that I didn't think anyone kept notes like this. So I did have...
I've done this once or twice.
And I actually, for a long time, I meant to do kind of a video saying this is what we're going to get, and I was waiting for the release to kind of compare and contrast, but one of the things that really had me impressed was his talk about the safe environment. I was trying to see if I could remember what he called safe. It was a 4-letter acronym, obviously. It was simple, affordable, family-focused, and entertaining. And the fact that all the games on it would be E for everyone, or E10 plus at the most, and that they are going to cost a digital copy in the maybe $10 to $15 range was what they were hoping for at the time. Obviously, here we are in 2022. Inflation has happened. Prices have gone up. I'm not necessarily dinging him for that, but it was a sales package where I said, this is something I'm willing to give a shot. I have kids that this is a perfect console for where they can sit down, play with dad, have a good time, and I don't have to worry about, some online content I don't want showing up in their system.
Now, one thing, and I don't know if you ever heard or saw any flack or whatnot. I did initially. And the interesting thing is, so Matthew and I used a Google Doc to share notes back and forth before we even kind of talked to Tommy. So we could kind of plan our work and work our plan. Mm-hmm. And we were making notes back and forth to each other because from the very first question, Tommy basically went off on a tangent and he answered the question that he wished that we had asked versus what we had actually asked. And in a lot of ways, I that falls on me as the moderator of the discussion for kind of letting that happen and letting that kind of get out of control a little bit. But it's one of those that I think as the interview went on, I got more comfortable with, like, all right, let's reel you in, Tommy. Let's kind of keep you more on focus here. One of the issues that I really had, and we had talked to him about the UI, and we had talked about physical games and things like that. And he had made, and I went back and listened to the second half of that interview again, just last night, actually. And I had asked him specifically, when are we going to see more UI, more controllers, more of everything? And his response, and I don't know, Matthew, if you remember this or not, was, well, we got to hold something back because we have press release information with, and he mentioned by name, he mentioned Rolling Stone and a couple other publications. It bugged me at the time. It still bugs me now because if you are leaking something out that, hey, this may be coming out soon, that's when you do stuff like that. If you have an announced product and you are generating revenue as a company, if you are crowdsourcing, which he's now doing and claimed at the time he would never do, which I understand things have not gone well, they need a revenue stream. But he said point blank that he wasn't going to release all the information at once because he needed to hold it back for other media agreements. Mm-hmm. When the PS5 was made official, was there anything left on the table for guesswork?
I'm going to go with no.
The Switch OLED, do we kind of know what we were getting with that?
Oh, okay. Now, to be fair with the OLED, there are a lot of people hoping there'd be kind of a upgrade of the hardware. But even then, once they released the specs,
once they announced it, though, right?
Yeah.
And that's where, like, RGT85 was talking about the Switch Pro forever. Sean, I love you, man. But it's one of those where there was no stake with that sizzle. But that was people guessing, and there were leaks coming out that this was what they were told the hardware was going to be.
Because up to that point, no one had even, Nintendo hadn't even officially said there'd be.
They were working on anything.
Yeah. It was just people kind of reading between some lines on things and fantasizing, to be honest.
It also bugs me to this date. And again, I went back and I rewatched the interview. I asked point blank if the system had gone to the FCC for things like Bluetooth compliant, for basically all the compliance testing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's up in, I think he said San Francisco at the time. And I don't know if the hardware was approved at that point in time. A year and a half, 2 years later, why are not at least the Founders Editions shipping? That's one of those that, having known from, again, previous employment, knowing what it takes to get an item through FCC approval to when you ship the product, the FCC approval is generally one of the last things that happens.
Yeah, if you change it, you have to do the approval again. You don't change your hardware after you get the approval. Because that's not that's an expensive process, getting those FCC and the EU and all those rubber stamps. Yep. You don't do it over and over again.
No, and it's one of those that if you don't pass compliance, then it becomes expensive because you have to go back, retool, re-engineer, redesign,
Mhm.
and that's something that you want to basically you run it through some test runs before you actually submit it for the final approval and everything. Um, we had both asked, and I think you kind of took the lead on this more, talking about the media that was going to be played on the system. And we were
Yes.
told that it was going to be a very special physical release, that it's going to have physical games.
Hmm. I was
I
excited
don't
about
know that
that.
I was too. And like we had talked to Tommy about, is there going to be any kind of adapter to play older Intellivision games? No, obviously it's one of those things that the target market for that is fairly small. The recouping of their investment on R&D and development and so on and so forth, it just wouldn't be there. But he had said there's absolutely going to be physical releases
In
and
fact,
a physical.
he specifically said, I may know this, that he lamented that modern games where you purchase a physical box are nothing more than a box with cover art and a flimsy piece
Yep.
of paper with a digital download code. That was his, not exact words, but those were the notes based on what he said. And
Right, and you're
I
right.
was so excited about that. I'm like, oh, that's awesome because we know there's an SD card slot. So all you have to do is include a basic SD card. You load it in once, and okay, I'll take it. I'd want something a little more, but I'd at least take that.
And what he released was basically a coin-sized amiibo.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not physical to me. That is closer to like the folks over at Retrobit have come out with what they're calling digital. It's a digital and physical release where it's essentially they are either selling you a cartridge with a game on it or they're going to send you a thumb drive with the ROM on it.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that at least kind of bridges both, where you're getting, the fancy box art, the limited edition gifts inside and well, not gifts because you're paying for it, but the extra pack-ins. But with this, you're getting, I mean, admittedly, beautiful box art. I thought the boxes looked great, but
Yeah.
you get it's an RFID chip that you hold to the top of the system to download, and that's just,
Yep.
I'm sorry, that is not physical games.
That is once your servers go belly up, you're screwed. You can never use this again. And unless people turn, and I do not approve of this, but if people turn to piracy, then that's the way you preserve it. And I don't think that's a good business model for the gaming industry. We don't want piracy in the gaming industry.
Right. And I mean, we've all seen the uproar in the last week or two with Nintendo announcing that, they're
Hmm.
at least giving people a year warning, which is, I commend them for it. But again, it's a year and their servers are going dark for the Wii and the 3DS. And you've had, I love them to death. Voltar has put out one great video showing how to go ahead and install Homebrew on both of them so that you can still have access to that digital content later.
Hmm.
I understand that. I don't agree with downloading, but if you're using it to preserve your existing and back up, a disk to an SD card, fine,
Yeah.
have at
Yeah.
it. But this is not physical by any stretch of the imagination. And it's really one of those, the only set, and I haven't done a whole lot of looking into this. So if I'm wrong on this, but I've only seen like, is it a 6-box set that you can buy and you currently can't get the individual games?
Yes. So I did look at that a little bit. It wasn't, I think they had two different 6-box sets, or you could buy the full 12. It was something along those lines. There were definitely two different, or maybe more than two, but they had smaller sets, which were around $80-ish, I want to say last time I looked. And then they had a full set, which
Okay.
was more like 130, something like that. Both of which I said, well,
A lot of
unless I have a physical system, I'm not going to buy a game for it. And now I'm
right,
really
and I
glad.
agree with that.
I'd be out 80, $100 if I had been like, oh yeah, I'm going to get the system, so I'm just going to buy this now.
Right. And I mean, one of the things people may be taking me to task on is the fact that anytime, or not anytime, but I would frequently respond to Tommy on Twitter or through Facebook, and I would tease him about the GTO Red model just because I thought it was a great looking piece of hardware. And we still don't have where is that system? When is that coming out? Anything along those lines. So um, he's also been taken to task, rightly or wrongly, about his claim, and we brought this up at the time, was the only on Amico.
Hmm.
And specifically, he had talked about the fact that you couldn't separate, like, one of the people in our stream, Jan Ang, I think was her name. His name, maybe. I'm not sure. I apologize if you're her and you're a he, or a he and her. Anyways, had brought up the idea of backing down the price of the system and perhaps only including one controller, doing different bundles. And he had talked about, getting into retail, having just one SKU or maybe just a SKU variant for color was a lot more appealing versus having, multiple level completion levels, essentially. The issue that I had, and he, again, the whole, you need the Amico controller to be able to do anything is what he kept talking about. He also has been taken to task in different interviews about why not release the games to mobile only through Steam or through something, along those lines, and maybe having the hardware be a follow-up that, let's get the Karma engine, which is what everything runs on, get that out of the public, get the games out, get the developers of the games paid, and
Yeah.
just play on mobile for the time being. Do a Stadia, or I forget what the Amazon cloud gaming thing is, but his whole thing was you have to have the hardware to play the software. And the more I listen to interviews after the fact, him talking about the fact that, everyone has an extra controller. It's in their pocket. It's your cell phone,
Hmm.
which to me contradicted what the whole angle of the system was. If you could use a mobile phone for everything, and it's not a requirement to have extra controllers. So if you had, 4 players, you could have 2 Amico controllers, 2 cell phones, and you'd be good. It really seemed like the hardware was not necessary. What do you think on that, Matthew?
It definitely wasn't. And first of all, the fact that when we had him on here a year ago, I remember telling him, like, hey, this is a safe space. I'm not gonna, because he was really getting worked up about some big drama going on.
Yep.
And like, just calm down. I understand things change, and I still stand by that mentality. But one of the things that did excite me about what he was talking about is the fact that I could use my cell phone as a controller.
Right.
I thought that was a great idea, so that there's not, I need a new Wii controller right now. And that's like a $40 thing. I'm like, I don't want to spend $40 right now. So I just let it, I don't use it that much. But we know for a fact that you didn't need the hardware because he did send out some demo games to people to test out, spread the word, and they were able to use it with the keyboard.
I think Moon Patrol was one of them, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Was it Astro? I forget.
Smash.
Well, yeah, I think it was Astro Smash. And they used keyboard and mouse, and everything worked fine.
Yep.
And so it absolutely was not tied to hardware. He has a glorious vision, and if it ever comes out, I'm still going to be interested in checking it out. For this whole environment, that's the Amico environment, and he didn't want to. This is me reading into him. Obviously, I don't know this, but me reading into what he did, I feel like he really didn't want to let go of that. Oh, this is my environment where all my games are, and people come, and it's gonna bring families together. And hey, we need people like that. They make great things. But I think he wasn't seeing the forest for the trees at that point.
Well, and I think that he was also, and to this point, still very much guilty of one of the worst things you can do is market to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran through a lot of numbers in the first 20, 30 minutes that we talked to him. And again, we talked to him 4 hours. That video there, it was a monster. But I saw the potential that he was talking about, but I never saw the buy-in potential that he was talking about either. Yes, there are billions of people around the world with smartphones. Yeah. Absolutely. No disagreement. But what's an even bigger market mover, and I brought this up when we talked to him, it's not the sheer number of these in your pocket. It's the kid pulling on mom's purse,
Yep.
badgering the bejesus out of dad, putting the ad for the Red Ryder BB gun in mom's copy of Look magazine. I'm sorry, if you are looking for, and we brought this up, kids on the playground, they are not going to be talking about, you know what, I've got the Amico at home. Their friends are going to look at them like, what the hell is an Amico?
Yeah.
For this, unless you're buying it for yourself, which you do, I do as adults, that we are still gamers and whatnot. Kind of sad thing, earlier today, I recently acknowledged another trip around the sun. And I am now in a different tier for my age bracket, which was really depressing. But neither here nor there. One of the strongest marketing tools is kids and badgering the daylights out of their parents for a Switch Lite, a Switch OLED, an Xbox One S. I'm sorry, Series S, Series
I knew
X,
what you meant.
Yeah, I hate that naming structure. I always will. But it's one of those things that you're not going to drive demand of kids with something they're not old enough to have nostalgia for. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, with all the freeware that's on your phone that you can play and just hand to your kids, you can get an Amazon Fire Kids tablet for under $80.
Yeah.
Why the hell am I going to drop $250 plus for an Amico in an ecosystem that has, relatively speaking, at this point in time, no support? It would be like me, who loved Palm WebOS phones, still dying on that hill to this day with my Palm Pre Plus. I made myself a Franken-Pre because the Pre 2 never came out on Sprint. I was a Sprint customer. Mm-hmm. I took the board out of the Sprint phone, put it in the Verizon phone. I had a Franken-Pre. I loved that system, and that WebOS community was amazing. But that being said, I was a hardcore tech geek at that point. I still am. Mm-hmm. I just don't see where what he was hoping for could have ever been delivered, because he was buying into his own hype.
It would have been a hard sell at $250. And this is one of the things he talked about a lot. He talked about how at the price point he was doing, it was supposed to be $50 less than the Switch, I think he said, and then another 100 or something cheaper than the Xbox, yada, 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 yada. It's now $350 for the system. They've increased it by 100 because, understandably, it's been a crazy time in the world. But at that
I will argue that point. I don't think it's understandably. When you look, he has taken, Ars Technica has basically spilled the beans on all the hardware. They have a pretty good track record in the industry of getting things accurate. Even let's say that they are 2 generations behind the tech of what they say it is, say that what's the hardware that's in there is 2 generations newer. That's still 2014 to 2016 tech. That technology should have come down so much in price. I mean, he's talking about using an older Snapdragon processor. He's talking about, limited-ish RAM and storage and everything on there. I'm sorry, at this point in time, yes, I know inflation is going crazy, but it's not a $350 system. It's just not.
Yeah, but do you do any computer part pricing at all?
Some, and I know some of it has gone up. I mean, even just look at smartphones at the way that has gone up over the last 4 or 5 years.
So, I mean, even though it's old tech, I mean, what is it? The NVIDIA cards, like the 1080s, they're insanely overpriced, even though they're very, very old at this point. So, I mean, honestly, you're probably right, Gary. It's probably not that the hardware itself is inflating and hard to get. More as they're like, hey, we're kind of getting underwater here. We're kind of, we're not getting enough demand, and we're getting a bigger and bigger bill built up because they have employees and they have, rental fees for facilities and lighting and internet and all that good stuff. And I think the fact they don't have a product out here, it may have prompted some of that. So I'm willing to, as a business guy myself, I'm willing to kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing. I understand why you're doing it. But I do think that the $350 point price point that they're at now,
It's
their
DOA.
system isn't worth $350.
No,
I think
and
they're
especially so when the original system, when the system was originally announced, it was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo in 2018, and I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Got to talk to Tommy for just a moment. The Xbox Series S hadn't been announced yet. I don't no, the Switch Lite was announced, and I actually had one because I took Gingers with me to the show. But even at, that was $199, still is $199. You're looking at the Series S now that is, literally $25 a month with Game Pass, where you've got hundreds of not mobile games, but AAA titles that you can play. The market has changed in 4 years. Think we're 3.5 years. We'll give them 6 months credit on here. October of 2018 to now has not shipped a single piece of hardware, not even to the not the investors. What am I thinking of? But Founders Editions. Those have not shipped yet either.
Yeah.
But recent news has become very just damning to the system and the company as a whole. And I don't know how much of the SEC filings and whatnot that you followed here, Matthew, but the fact that basically they say they'll be out of cash in 6 months if they don't get more funding coming in. There's been changes, and I think this is the way the company should have been from the beginning. Is Tommy is no longer present. He's no longer president, but he still may be CEO. But he's basically head of creative, which he's a creative guy. He just is. You can't argue that. But they brought in Mike Kennedy. And I don't know if you know who Mike Kennedy is, Matthew.
Yeah.
He was one of the people behind the Coleco Chameleon.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, bless their hearts.
We all know how many Coleco Chameleons have shipped.
Have any? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. None.
Not a single one. People criticize, put this in the same vein as the Atari VCS. That was a cluster to begin with and to finish with, but at least the VCS has shipped. I still think that's an overpriced piece of hardware. But it's one of those things that I didn't want to believe, and I still don't want to believe because, again, having talked to him and whatnot, I don't think that the company and the project was set out to be a scam. I still don't think it's set out to be a scam.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those that, and you would be better versed in this phrase than I am. The pathway to hell is paved in good intent. Is that what?
Yeah.
The path to hell is
paved in good intentions. That's the ticket.
Yeah.
Or the road to hell is paved in good intentions. But yeah, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Here. So honestly,
this is
my thought about it. At this point, okay, so obviously I pre-ordered, and I'm like, okay, October. I'm excited. I don't know how many games there are going to be at the time, but I'm excited. And October comes around, they say, you know what? It's actually going to be Q4. Okay, we can have in time for Christmas. And then they say, actually, it's going to be February. I'm like, ooh, okay, that's a little more concerning. And they say, you know what? It's just going to be Q1 of 2022.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I think we got ourselves an Oya on our hands. You know that console?
But the Oya shipped.
It did ship. And this is what I think. As long as they can get their stuff together, I think that we probably will see a round of shipments from this. And it's going to be like the Oya, where the marketing team overpromised, and the hardware team was like, no, it's not going to do any of the things you have been telling people it's going to do. I don't think it's going to be as bad as like Daikatana, but I think it is going to be pretty rough. Excuse me, John Romero's Daikatana. You got to say the full title.
Well, and one of the things that bothered me too, and I actually talked to Tommy about this in December of 2021. And like I say, he and I have remained in contact. We've remained friendly, but we've never like had any other in-depth conversations. Mm-hmm. But in December of 2021, they released a video with their art director at Intellivision, and they talked about the UI And at about the 45 second, I'm going to read exactly what I sent to Tommy, and I'm going to let you all know what his reply was. I watched the video about the UI and it has me intrigued, and I'm glad you're showing off this sort of thing. One thing that bothered me when I heard it, and I'm hoping you can clarify, is at the 45-second mark, you mentioned that the team has been working on the UI for about a year. What bothers me about this is the original 10-10-20 was supposed to be the launch date. If the UI had started development work at the time you stated, there is absolutely no chance it would have hit that launch window. You know, and again, just word for word what I had sent to him. You know, I like and respect you, and I have every confidence you'll get Amico to the market. I'm not sure of that anymore. For me, having just finished the development and deployment of multiple websites in the past year, however, I know the UI is one of the first things that has to be set up for an architecture like this. I don't want to tweet this out, as I know you deal with enough BS, and I didn't want you to have to deal with trolls and idiots out there. Sidebar, I also didn't want to give him ammunition to go after other people either, because it wouldn't have been beneficial to anyone. I can't say that hearing this wasn't alarming to hear. Was this an accurate statement in the timeline of development? Was the UI development started after the original 10-10-20 release date? And if so, how was the spring of 21 ship date realistic as well? With having to do alpha and beta testing, smoke testing the OS, getting the code to the manufacturer to program the units and the containers into Long Beach, I don't see logistically how this timeline was realistic. And his response was, yo, Gary, I appreciate you contacting me directly. It's a shame more people don't do that these days. And you know what? He's not wrong there. If you have a question, go to the source. It's the best source of information. He has pinned a comment to the video explaining, it says, although we've designed and tweaked versions of it for over 2.5 years, and I've shown versions of it since last August, the team at Intellivision has been working full-time on this final version for over a year. So many more cool things to share about the UI, which we will be revealing in a deep dive closer to launch. Thanks for watching. What we were referring to, and this is a separate quote, not in the pinned comment, what we were referring to in the video is that we've been working on the final visually designed version for over a year, but we had been showing versions of this publicly since August of last year and been working 2.5 years on it. We're talking about the lockdown of design and visuals. For example, we showed it in August of 2020. You can see we had this robot arm design, which was similar and functioning. Provided a link. And I know, like, I'm very good friends with John Riggs. John's played this. Now, is this a Amico chameleon where it was a Raspberry Pi in another shell and, you know, they were using their phones to play? I don't know. Yeah. That I don't know. And quite frankly,
you did see some videos of kids playing it, which again, you don't know if it's, you know, is this the founder editions they're playing, or is it a computer running inside a nice case?
Right. And this is where I think Tommy is so passionate that he hurts himself, rightly or wrongly, in a lot of this, where there are many times, and I do it myself, I am completely guilty of it because I don't script my videos. I'm also not running a company with millions of dollars in investments in it either. But I think Tommy gets ahead of himself. He gives people ammunition to criticize and attack, sometimes without even thinking, about what he's doing. But that has me very concerned that the software wasn't ready. And if that software isn't ready, how can programmers get their games ready?
Yeah. You have a single API called change, and the game you wrote is all of a sudden non-functional. It takes a lot of time to fix.
I mean, even going from, for iPhone users from iOS 12 to 13, or for Android users from Android 11 to 12, there are apps that get broken just with, the core API and everything is still there. The basics are still there, but there are changes to the code that otherwise breaks things that before were functional. So that has me very concerned to this point in time that, again, I'm not going to use the scam word. I don't think it was a scam, but I think they were out very much over their skis throughout the entire development of this project.
Yeah. And honestly, the UI issue is actually what had me cancel my Amico. Because so last Monday, the news drops about how Tommy's stepping down, or promoting away, or however they worded it. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but Tommy was no longer going to hold the position he had. And on that day, on the Intellivision's YouTube channel, they drop a video. I'm like, okay, perfect. This is what they need to do right now. Come up, say this is what's going on, this is where we're at, this is when you can expect stuff. And instead, it was this demo video of actors playing the console. Of course, then you got the little asterisk, like, not actually playing anything. all
Right.
video is, pre-rendered, stuff like that. And then I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's weird. But they're gonna come out February, so I'm still gonna give this a shot. And then I find out that they've gone to Start Engine to do crowdfunding stuff. And as you read through, toward the bottom of their page, they say, we've completed the hardware and our software is in final development. And I said, that's it. I'm out. Because you do not have a February release date if you are still working on the software in the middle of February. You don't.
Right.
You might have a June if you're really, really, really in final development and you're really, really, like, you have all this stuff sitting there and you just need to flash it all. A quick firmware update. Okay, maybe June. That's probably being overly optimistic on my part. I'm not in product, so you would probably know better than I would on this, Gary.
Well, it's kind of like, okay, we have a perfect example. We have the new Kirby game coming out for the Switch on, I think it's March 25th of 2022. So those cartridges, they're molded. Everything's been written to the memory that's on them. They've been package sealed. They're on a shipping container heading to the US, if not here already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is your launch software for the Amico. If you need to do any updates, it's called a day one patch. I mean, your software needed to be finalized at this point.
Yeah, they're not going to unbox everything and flash it. Yeah.
No. It'll be a day one update, which is fine. I mean, that's something that the consumers are general. I mean, I've pre-ordered a Samsung, S22 Ultra for my wife, and it gets here in a week from last Friday. I am thoroughly expecting, once everything gets set up on there, to do a day one firmware update or security patch from Verizon to that phone. Consumers have gotten used to that. And, in that same video, a couple things I want to bring up and address in that video, and going back to E3 too. The fact that they used royalty-free images for people and stage people playing the Amico. I'm sorry, you have hardware in-house. We've seen you with it.
Mm-hmm.
You have people in-house with families. Get a photographer. If you don't have a staff photographer, hire one for the day. You're not that far from LA. There's photographers everywhere.
Yeah.
And go get some lifestyle photos. That bugged me. That was the lazy way out, quite honestly. And I know Tommy kind of dismissed the use of stock photos. No, that is a bad for E3. You don't do that for E3, the biggest show of the year. Even if it's not as important as it used to be, you don't do that for E3.
Yeah.
And then, what was it too? There was something else that just happened in that sizzle reel now that, what am I forgetting now? But there was something else that happened recently. And the fact too, he said they were never going to crowdsource, and they're crowdsourcing now.
Yeah.
There are just so many red flags. I mean, when you have, and I don't know if you know who he is or not, but Jeff Tanzia, aka Smash JT, who has been banging the drum all day long for Amico, and even he is starting to say that he is worried about losing his investment, that he basically doesn't see this coming to fruition. I mean, you've lost one of your biggest cheerleaders there, and that's definitely concerning.
I think I watched his video where he was talking about how he was not going to invest more at this point. And he said,
if you saw someone sitting shirtless in a hot tub, it was him.
No, this was a guy on a walk. I thought it was.
It could have. He does that as well through like a woodsy area and whatnot.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was him. And if it's not, I apologize. But it was someone who is definitely, I've seen like 30 or 40 videos of this guy just praising the Amico. And
Sure.
he came along. He's like, look, I love this still. I look forward to getting it, but I can no longer encourage people to invest in this. And I'm personally not going to be investing any more of my money into their ecosystem. I'm like, wow, that's hard.
Yep.
But unfortunately, I do think that the way they've handled the past 12 days now has been extremely poorly done. They chose poorly.
That's a terrible quote from not the Crystal Skulls, which I at least appreciate.
What? You're talking about the best Indiana Jones movie quote right here. No, we're not getting into this. We're talking the Amico.
No. But okay, but let's talk about not a crystal skull, but a crystal ball.
Okay.
6 months from now, do we have hardware shipping?
Okay, so the fact that they're saying we're going to be out of money in 6 months, and the fact that if you look at Stick Engine, they are currently at $59,000 raised.
Well, and net out of that is only like $4 or $5 grand because they had someone, which could have been Jeff, that pulled his investment out.
So, I mean, look, they went to not the greatest crowdsourcing website from what I've heard. They're not raising much money. My crystal ball right now is saying it was time for me to get a refund because I'm never seeing a system at this point, and I don't want to be out $100. And Tommy, so if you ever see this is not an insult to you. I loved our chat. This is just me being a cold hard realist, which is what I am, and unfortunately, that's what I saw in my crystal ball.
So you're saying the Amico will never ship. Period. Will we see the Founders Editions? Will we see anything shipped from them?
I don't think we're ever going to see anything. I really don't. Maybe they have a handful of production ones that they send out to their top 5 supporters. Maybe their top investors get it. I don't know. I don't see anything ever coming at this point.
Will we see, because there have been developers creating software, will we see that software on other platforms?
That, I would say we have a high chance of. Software developers aren't idiots. They're going to take all the work they've done in Unity or whatever. I would assume it's done in Unity. No offense to what I've seen on the pre-rendered stuff on YouTube for the Amico. It looks like they're running what I'd expect to find on an old telephone, an old smartphone. Or
the Wii.
Yeah. So I would 100% say, you know what, we're going to take all the work we did in Unity, we're going to take those assets, and we're just going to make it work on the Switch. And you know what? We have a much, much bigger market. And I bet they're just waiting out, NDAs and contracts at this point.
Well, and one thing, and I was thinking about this leading into this conversation, one thing that Tommy mentioned was he was going after the Wii audience because Wii Sports was such a huge hit and brought families together. And we also talked about how the Switch OLED is now a thing and the Xbox Series S is a thing, and Nintendo Switch Sports is a thing. Okay. I played the demo last night. Bowling is great. The sword game, Kata Cabra, I think they call it, is terrific. Tennis was more fun than I remembered it being on the Wii.
Wait. How would the Switch Lite be able to do sports?
It can't. You need a TV connection. So it won't even work in tabletop mode. So there is that.
Okay.
But still, the original Switch is still available at $299.
And I did just get $100 back on a deposit that I had done, and I don't have a Switch yet. So I mean, that's a good thing.
You know where you can get a Switch? Head on over to CastlemaniaGames.com. Ryan does carry Switch hardware and first-run Switch games. He's getting set up to be able to do pre-orders soon. And I mean, you are in Castle Cash. He can do Pay in 4 as well. So I mean, that's an easy way for you to get your hands on a Switch. And
it's a win-win.
Nobody leaves the castle unhappy. So there is that. So you're saying no hardware, maybe software, not even founders editions.
Yeah,
I'm
and on the
saying
software, I don't think we'll ever know. Like, oh yeah, this game, this is one we developed for the Amico. Because now there's some things. There's some things like Astro Smash, Evil Knievel, the roguelike one they had done. I think those games,
Earthworm Jim.
Earthworm Jim, I think that those are tied into the Amico brand, and they're not going to release them somewhere else. Maybe,
Sure.
maybe at some point, assets get sold off, other people buy them. Maybe we see it then. But honestly, I'd say that sort of stuff, I would be like, yeah, we're not getting anything with that. But in terms of third-party developers who went through they call it the Blue Sky Rangers program, I think it was.
Yep.
I think those people would be very intelligent to take the work they've done and release it onto the Switch, which is a huge ecosystem for them.
Yep, completely agree. So me looking into my crystal ball, I don't think we're going to see shipment in 6 months. I think we will see the founders editions by the end of the year, and I only think there's like 200 or 300 of those. So I think they're going to recoup whatever money that they can get out of that, and they're going to be done. And they may open source the technology from there. Do you think, and this is going to be a hot take either way, do you think this was set up at the beginning to be another Coleco Chameleon, to basically be something that you get your investment, everybody gets their money, you never deliver a product?
I'm going to say no. I don't think this was set up to be like that. I think that Tommy is a passionate man. I think he is a dreamer. And I think he was truly, honestly excited about this. And I think he thought he could do it. And the fact that we're hitting this point, and unfortunately he was, maybe he pulls it off. But from my stance, I don't think he's going to pull it off. I think we're going to hit there and go, crap, I thought I could do it. And I failed. It was just whatever. Honestly, there's probably one person missing in this project. Someone to take this energy and be able to guide it into the best path possible so that we say, this is the deadline for this. This is the deadline for this. No, you don't need to be worrying about that. If that one person had been there, we'd probably have an Amico today.
A good project manager.
Yeah.
Really?
Without that one person, unfortunately, I think that the project hit one delay after another, the point that it has delayed itself out of the ability to complete itself. And unfortunately, I mentioned Daikatana earlier, and that's almost what happened to it. Where they kept changing the source engine they were using because, oh, this one looks better. Oh, this one looks better. And then you finally get the game and you're like, this is it? Or I guess Cyberpunk would be a better example nowadays. Where they kept changing source engines and people are like, oh, this is just, no.
So I've got to say I'm very much along the same lines as you. Like, I don't think that this was a scam to begin with. I don't think that this was something that, hey, we bought out an IP. Let's go ahead and see if we can make a quick buck with it, because I just don't see him sticking with it for 4 years. And the other thing with conspiracies, someone always talks. And
Yeah.
I don't see this as, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, that they are the victims of their own best intentions here. But I remember the one thing I was going to bring up earlier too that had me concerned was the fact that in their recent sizzle reel that they put out, they had quotes from YouTubers, and they took people completely out of context. Rerez was one of them that they completely misquoted him. Tipster was someone they completely misquoted him. I really wonder if this is something that, I mean, quite honestly, them doing this, it does not fall under fair use. This is a commercial license that they should have had to pay for, and they didn't. So the fact that they are misquoting someone here, like Rerez was on there saying, Shane, for those of you who know him, saying that he doesn't know if this will work, but and I'm summarizing here, so I'm probably misstating it slightly. Don't know if the Amico is going to work or whatnot, but if anyone can do it, Tommy Tallarico can do it. And they cut
Mhm.
the footage right there. And the next sentence was, but I don't think he can do it.
Oh gosh. Whoops.
Tipster had on his, and he actually just talked about this recently too, was the fact that they took him out of context where he's talking about all these issues with Amico, how he doesn't think it's going to happen, how just all the issues he sees going into this. And then he brings up the fact it's the same thing as the very fine people on both sides. Basically, he said that Intellivision had a lot of great engineering. Again, I'm summarizing here. I'm not quoting directly, but basically that there were a lot of talented people that were on board at Intellivision behind the Amico. But if you go 30 seconds before and 30 seconds after on either side with both Shane Rerez and Tipster, it completely changes the context of what's being said, and that's just shady, and that bothers me. That really bothers me. So you've canceled yours. I never ordered mine. I never ordered one. I was waiting to see if there was going to be a GTO Red announcement. I figured just with the red and whatnot, it would have been a Target exclusive. That's kind of what I had thought. We've never heard anything about it. I'm not going to pre-order one at this point. If it ever comes out and it's at that $350 range, I'm not going to buy it either. I don't agree with those that say, oh, it's just mobile flash games. I think there was more that went into it. But as I said, Tommy, and I don't know if you remember this that night, I hate playing touchscreen games on my phone. I don't want to do it. And the fact that, yes, you had the dial pad and whatnot on the controller, but the other side was the display for your buttons. I had no interest in playing that. None. And even now, we talked about this that night.
Yeah.
That Tommy likes to say something and intend it one way, and will get frustrated or upset if someone takes it somewhere else. So we talked about the fact that the controllers have wireless charging built into them.
Yes.
I read that as, okay, my Pixel 6 XL Pixel 6 Pro has induction charging. It's a Qi wire standard. So are these Qi wireless charging? Well, no, it's got a pin and socket and whatnot, sits in there, makes contact, but you don't have to plug anything in. It's a difference without a distinction is what it is.
And see, gosh, I hate to say things like this because I could be wrong and I can offend people and I try not to, but he doesn't know how to take something on the chin, a critique like this. So, and originally, the system was designed to have Qi wireless charging, or however you pronounce it. Yep. At some point, they said, this is not price conducted. Like, it makes no sense for us to do it this way. We're just driving up the price. So, we're just going to use the 3 little contacts like we have on the Wii controllers. Yep. We have on whatever, like, okay, the Xbox, you actually can plug it in, but a lot of them do it. We just set it down. I think PlayStation 3 or 4 did it, and it was kind of a hassle depending on which charger you had because it didn't always sit in the cradle right.
But PS5 has that issue.
Oh, 5. Wow. Way. Wow. I can't talk anymore.
Drink.
My point here. Yep. Reset the brain, Matthew. You're going off on a tangent. My point here is he should have taken on the chin at this point and said, yep, you know what? We changed production. We had planned this. I didn't lie about it, but we have changed production. But instead, he tried to justify, like, no. It's still wireless. It's still wireless. It's like, this is the point where you set yourself up to have people attack you.
Right. And I agree with that. I really do. And he was trying, and this is where Tommy, the marketer, and Tommy, the creative person, we just needed 2 different people doing it. And I think if they would have started off with him simply driving the creative and being the creative force behind it, we may not be where we're at right now. And I feel bad for him because, like, we mentioned, I don't think he ever intended, even to this day, he never intended to do harm by anyone. He had
Oh
a
yeah, I
vision.
agree.
He had a vision, rightly or wrongly, and I still think that he was late to the market. If he would have been 5 years sooner, the Amico would have had a chance. But even if it would have launched on time, I don't know that it would have been the success he was hoping for. But I really think that, like I mentioned earlier, he got out over his skis, and
Mhm.
it was something he had such a passion for the original system and couldn't
Mhm.
understand why other people didn't. He mentioned there are people that don't know anything before the NES, so they don't have any perspective. I had an Atari 2600, but for me, I fell in love with gaming with the NES. I never had an Intellivision. I have no nostalgia
Yeah.
for that system. Never had a ColecoVision. Never had a 5200 or 7800. We went from the 2600 to the NES to a Super NES, and from there, I became an adult and got to buy my own stuff. And kids, if you're watching this, don't grow up. It's a trap. It's a
Mm.
sick, sick trap. Um, but I really think that Tommy became a victim of reading his own press. And then I've dealt with product developers. If you critique a product, they take it as a personal attack because they have
Yes.
invested so much of their time and their effort and their love and their passion into this project. So if you don't like this project, well, then you don't like me and you're attacking me as a person versus, you're a good person. I like you. You're an okay engineer. I like most of your stuff. This steaming pile. And I don't know that the
Yeah.
Amico would have been a steaming pile, but to this point, I don't see it being a commercial success ever. And even a year ago, I had a hard time seeing it as a commercial success.
Yeah, and he talked about how they're not out there to compete with the Nintendos and the PlayStations.
You
And
have
it's
to
a
be.
nice line, but he is. Like even if he doesn't see himself as competing with them, the reality of the situation is that he's going to be competing with them.
Right.
He,
Because
he
you only have so much disposable income.
Yeah. Unless you make this, you're not competing with other smartphones. You're competing with other consoles at that point.
Right.
And honestly, he may have been better off just building a software environment to play on Android or iOS or something. And you could have worked out from that, or even the Raspberry Pi. My goodness. Design an environment on the Raspberry Pi. It has built in Bluetooth if you get the right model. It's a cheap environment, good processor. Don't want to shield too much for them. I may have been affiliated with them at one point in an unofficial manner, but he shot too far.
Well,
Went
and
too
not
high with.
only that, I mean, okay, if you want to bring back the nostalgia of the old system, terrific. Do a plug and play like Atari has done and other companies have done. And if anything, if you want to take it to the next level, partner with companies like RetroArch or things along those lines. If you
Yeah,
really want to have, okay, the Retron 5, love it or hate it, is built on Android. Whether or not they got the
yes,
rights correct, per the letter of what open source code, I'm not talking about that, but I'm simply saying the Retron 5 runs on Android. The
hmm
Retron SQ runs on Android. Android is open source. I don't know why, unless you're going to build, a custom kernel from the ground up, which is expensive and you need many software engineers to be able to do. Um,
hmm
I don't know why you would try to swim upstream and try to create something completely different from scratch, except for the fact that you create it then in house and you don't have to worry about hacking and things along those lines.
yeah.
I think the
I mean,
system
honestly, at the
became
end of the
more
day,
complex.
I suspect it was running on Android or Linux of some kind. At the end of the
It
day,
very possible. It wouldn't surprise me just as that being the base kernel. Um, okay. Yeah, again, we're now coming up on the hour and a half mark. Um,
goodness.
yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. I keep talking.
You're tonight playing the role of Tommy Tallarico is Life with Matthew. Um, so in the end, and I think we're both kind of saying the same thing here. I have no ill will towards Tommy. I have
Mhm.
no ill will to 99% of the team except for the dude who was also behind the Calico Chameleon, which I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. That dude's scummy from just what he did there. Um, I'm I actually got invited, and I'm still a member of, and probably after this I'll get kicked out of it. I'm a member of the Amico fan page on Facebook. Tommy invited me to. I don't know if he sent you an invite
Oh,
to
cool.
it or not. I don't post. I just kind of keep an eye on what's going on. If you are, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do or not do with their money. I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing with mine.
Yeah.
I'm not investing in the company. I'm not buying hardware. I'm not buying software. I'm not This is not meant to badmouth the company. I still wish them nothing but the best because they're trying to help people have fun with gaming. And that's a
Yeah.
good thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. And hey, if they excuse me, if they pull this out and they somehow get a product to launch and it actually gets Steam and they release another revision of it, beyond the Founders Edition, I wouldn't be opposed to getting it in the future. The one and only reason that I personally have canceled my pre-order at this point, and I canceled on Monday morning, and by Monday evening, I think it was, maybe Tuesday morning, I had the refund in hand. So they're not hiding away. They're not pretending like, oh, it takes 7 to 20 days for us to refund this. They were very prompt about it. But if it comes out, I'll probably get it. I think it was a great idea for a system. I think some of the things he was doing, like not letting you really have friends to play with online, was short-sighted. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, and I'll kind of lead us to the end by this. So I don't know if anyone watching, I'm assuming many people do, listen to the CU podcast with Pat and Ian. I've had a handful of conversations with Pat. Pat's always been very standoffish. I've had a number more with Ian. I like Ian a lot. Ian and I can strike up a conversation and just, I mean, it's just there. And like, I respect Ian. I enjoy talking with him. In my book, Ian has never been anything but friendly, nice, and polite to me. So I believe Ian brought up the fact in one of the recent CU podcasts that take the idea of the Amico, a family-friendly console, and work with like NBC Universal and publish VeggieTale games and market it towards and I thought it was a great idea. Market it towards, Christian families, religious families who want that wholesome sort of content for their kids. And you're not going to have huge production runs because, quite honestly, the demand won't be there. However, you will have a very loyal, no pun intended, faithful audience that can help support a system such as this. But you got to bring that cost down. And I think at the end
Yeah.
of the day, at now their third price increase, and I didn't even realize that they jumped the price up to $349 now. Original launch window was 149, 179, and then it jumped to 229, then 249, 299, 279. Now over $300. No, I'm out. Not
Yeah.
interested. Sorry, man. So, for those of you not aware, so our buddy here at Life with Matthew, while he has this gaming backdrop behind him, I would say probably better known for being involved in the world of sci-fi and fantasy, being involved in the Star Trek realm. Star Wars, not so much.
No, I love Star Wars.
Okay.
I'm just an idiot when it comes to remembering details, so I always get everything wrong.
But I have heard that since we last recorded, that you know how to pronounce a certain mod for the NES.
Do I? Do I? You're gonna call me out? Oh gosh, it is the blinking light win.
Very good. But he
Yes.
also does live movie watch-alongs with people and crowds and whatnot. And then I think it's Wednesdays you do your Sequest.
So I do that Tuesday nights, and we only have 3 episodes left, so
Okay.
that'll be done very quickly here. And then on Mondays, I do my overthinking Voyager, which I just told you I get everything wrong, so I don't know what I was thinking trying to be overly analytical of a TV show. So I just get all the details wrong. But fortunately,
Yeah.
John's around. You'll see him commenting, and he'll set everyone straight in the comments.
John DeMarco, for those not familiar. But for those who want to kind of, hang out with you and see what you have going on, where can they learn and see more about the man, the myth, the even more so graying, bike riding, bearded life with Matthew?
Yeah, you can find me here on YouTube as Life with Matthew. If I can point right, which I can't, I give up. Or I hang out on Rumble. I try to make things a little more categorized on Rumble, where I just have like biking with Matthew, gaming with Matthew, overthinking Voyager by itself. Whereas on YouTube, I am a smorgasbord of random crap. Whatever suits my fancy that day, that's what I'm talking about. Right now, it's been Voyager stuff. I have a pile of really fun video game stuff over here that I need to go through once I get half a minute to breathe, you know?
I know nothing about having half a minute to breathe, as moving and setting up game rooms and things along those lines. So I do believe, if I
And
look
yet,
behind me, if you notice, you even dropped out on our 4 hour live
yes,
stream there because you were having. I'm impressed that we have not lost internet connection with you once in this stream. So there you pop back up. So I do appreciate that. You popped up like a flash. Get it?
yeah,
See the
haha, I
the
do.
shirt,
Yeah,
the shirt,
yeah.
right? Because I know you're such an Ezra Miller fan and everything.
Ezra,
Right,
no, no,
right,
we
right
can't be
about
friends anymore.
right about there. So,
See,
all
you
right,
talk about not being able to have half a minute, and yet you're still able to put out, what, 2 to 3 videos a week? Because you
Monday,
are a professional, unlike me,
a
who's just a
professional
bumbling
amateur.
idiot.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 12:30 Central Time. Hang out for our premieres. Love to have you there. Um, I'll let you kind of have final thoughts here. What's your? I'll let you give your obituary, your commemoration, whatever your last dying gasp of amico-ness.
Sure. My obituary, I loved talking with Tommy a year ago. That was such a fun thing to hang out with him and just chew the fat for 4 hours. Um, I would have loved it if we could have stayed away from some of the drama points, but even with that, it was such fun hanging out with him and hearing about the system that he is passionate about, a system that I 100% believe he had every intent of getting out to the market. I'm sad that we're probably not going to see that. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I'm like I said, I'm a realist, and I think realistically speaking, the sort of investment he's seeing right now in his last Hail Mary effort, the fact that he's saying 6 months, or not he, the fact that Intellivision is saying 6 months and then that's it. And the writing's on the wall. I mean, it, it's been measured, and it's just I don't see it making it there, and that's sad to me because I was not someone who was one of the hateful eight sort of people, you know, someone who they kind of built up this. This is one of the nasty things about YouTube. People can build up an algorithm around hate, and even if they don't feel that strongly about it, they got to keep feeding the beast if this is their full-time job. And I was never that way with him. I wish him all the best, and I honestly hope he succeeds in this. I hope that despite everything I see, this works out somehow.
Well, and just to dovetail on that, whether you like me or not, whether you like Matthew or not, and um, the fact that he doesn't show up for live streams or premieres and whatnot on the regular, forgets, and I don't get no YouTube notifications.
Not like you have a schedule. Monday,
Yeah,
Wednesday, when I can't handle this sort of consistency.
right. But so the way that Matthew and I both went into the interview with Tommy was cordially, politely, but skeptically. And you can disagree with someone without becoming disagreeable yourself. And there were times when, in talking to Tommy, even since then, where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't pass the smell test. But you know what? I'm going to be polite to you about it. I'm going to let you know that doesn't work for me, brother. Wrestling fans hopefully got that reference there. But at the same time, I did not need to do an Amico video a week, drudging up drama, talking about this is the greatest system ever, because I didn't know that. I didn't believe that. I still don't believe that. Could it have been a fun system? Absolutely. Would it have been a system for me? Probably not. Would I have still bought it? If the GTO Red, just because I like the look of the GTO Red, I probably would have bought one specifically for the channel, because I've done that in the past. I've bought hardware in the past to do reviews on for the channel here, and then it sat in the box unless I take it to a convention to try to recoup some money that way. I mean, my Switch OLED I've started to kind of use, but mostly in docked mode. I mean, for the most part, I'm still playing on my primary Switch. I bought a Switch OLED for the channel. I've bought controllers and cables, and I don't believe that we were lied to when Tommy talked to us. At the same time, I don't know that he was entirely honest with us either. And there is a difference between a deliberate lie and not being honest with someone. I think that there were things that were candy coated and sugar coated. I do think there were things that were a bit disingenuous, and I do think that he was holding his cards to his chest. I am not a Seinfeld fan, but I will also say I don't think this was a George Costanza moment where, George basically says, it's not a lie if you believe it. I believe that Tommy thought that he was being honest with us, that he was being as deliberate with his words as he could. But I also think that he was still very much on the defensive with what others were saying about. And I have not seen it personally. I haven't. But his claims where people were talking very nasty things towards his wife and employees and whatnot, doxing people, that I don't, the guy's trying to make a video game system. If it's not for you, you don't need to dox people or, swat them or send pizzas to his place of business or whatever. It's okay that someone makes something that's not for you and someone else enjoys it. The Xbox is that way with me. I'm not an Xbox fan. Never have been, never will be. People love the Xbox. People love the Xbox controller. People love Game Pass. You know what? As long as people are playing games and having fun, great. Because that's how we continue to grow this hobby. I was hopeful that Tommy had found a unique way to bring more casual people back into this hobby. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to succeed. So I don't know what else we have to say here, Matthew. I think we've kind of covered all of our bases, and all your base are belong to us.
Oh, no,
No?
I'm not. Yes, I was alive for those memes too. I remember.
No, that wasn't Trogdor. That was
That was Lone Star.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't Trogdor Comes in the Night. I'm trying to think.
Trogdor!
Yes. Okay. Now we have officially gone off the rails. Okay. Make sure you subscribe to him. He is Life with Matthew. This guy over there. There we go. Now I'm pointing to it. He has got great stuff. He is fun. What is your next milestone you're trying to hit?
I don't worry about that stuff. I could have 5 subscribers, and I'm going to do what I do.
Okay, do me a favor. I know he's not there yet. Let's try to get him to 1,000 subscribers. So share this video out.
That'd be great.
Share links out to his channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Consider it a personal favor to me. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe on this one. I hope that you have found this hour and a half video now that was only supposed to be half an hour and trust me, I'm going to be editing this out, Matthew, so it's not going to be this full length. But we really do appreciate it. I hope that this has kind of helped clear the air too, because there were people that took us to task after that first interview, and I think this has provided it's been cathartic, at least for me.
Okay.
And don't worry, Matthew, your bill for your therapy session will be in the mail.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Right there. All right. Well, until next time, I am Gary. This has been Rock Solid Productions. And if you want to see our original video with Tommy, any of our other interviews that we've done and more, those videos are coming up for you right now. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you want to help support Rock Solid Productions and be a part of our community, there's a number of different ways you can do so. First and foremost, join us over on our Patreon page or become a channel member here on YouTube. By joining through either one of those methods, you get early access to just about all of our video content, exclusive content, and a whole lot more. We also give you shout outs at the end of each and every one of our videos. You can also pick up some awesome Rock Solid Productions swag. We've got t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and more available through our Teespring store on screen right now too. You can also pick up some of our awesome 3D printed cartridge stands, amiibo holders, Nintendo DS holders, and more by visiting our 3D printer store on screen right now as well. Links for everything will be down below in a pinned comment. If you want to stay up to date with everything we have going on here at Rock Solid Productions, make sure that you're following us on the different social media networks. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/RockSolidProductions, Instagram at instagram.com/RockSolidProductionsGK, and Twitter at RockSolidStudios. If you're looking to pick this and other retro and modern gaming accessories up, make sure that you head on over to CastlemaniaGames.com. He has a feature over there called Castle Cash, where the more you spend, the more you earn towards future purchases, and Castle Cash is just like cash. He also offers convenient payment plans for more expensive items over $50. Finally, make sure that you use promo code ROCKSOLID10 when you're shopping at CastlemaniaGames.com, as it can save you up to 10% on most items on the website. Again, thank you for watching this episode, and I cannot wait to see you again soon.